Have you ever wondered that somewhere in the world, at this very moment, someone's heart is breaking? Maybe that person is sitting in a dark room, tears streaming down their face, wondering why yet another relationship didn't work out. Sounds sad, right? But what most people fail to see is that at this very moment, that person is closer to a breakthrough than ever before. Let me tell you why. For years, I've studied human behavior, neuroscience, and the quantum field, and something has always caught my attention. The moments when we feel most alone, those filled with intense pain, are exactly the ones that prepare us for the greatest transformations in our lives. Let me share a story that deeply moved me and changed my perspective on relationships and human potential. A few years ago, I worked with a brilliant scientist. She held 3 PhDs, ran a prestigious lab, and from the outside, it seemed like she had everything anyone could ever want. But she had one problem. She sabotaged her own happiness. She moved from one relationship to another, always searching for someone to complete her. One day, she realized that for 15 years, she had been making decisions based on her partner's desires. Where to live, what to do, which dreams to pursue. Do you know what happened? Her incredible research, the thing that truly made her eyes sparkle, took a back seat. Now think, how many times have you done the same? How many times have you dimmed your light so you wouldn't outshine someone else? How many times have you hidden your dreams because they didn't align with someone else's plans? This doesn't mean you have to be against relationships. It's about understanding something fundamental that most people ignore. Our brains have been wired for millions of years to seek connection. It's part of who we are. But in today's world, that need often turns into dependency. And believe me, dependency is the biggest enemy of your growth. When you rely on another person to feel happy, valuable, or have direction in life, you're operating from your old self. But what if I told you that the key to your transformation doesn't lie in finding the perfect relationship? It lies in developing the right relationship with yourself. The thing you're searching for so desperately in others often diminishes your ability to reach your true potential. This is where science meets personal growth. Research shows that when we are alone, the parts of the brain associated with self-awareness and personal development become more active. In solitude, you have access to neural pathways that usually remain hidden when you're surrounded by people. Instead of wasting energy trying to understand others' emotions, your brain focuses on discovering who you truly are and what you want to create in your life. Now, the question we must ask ourselves is this: are we using relationships as a springboard for evolution or as crutches to avoid our own growth? Here's the truth. The universe doesn't make mistakes. If you feel lonely and are questioning your relationships, it doesn't mean something is wrong. Perhaps you are exactly where you need to be to start the most important relationship in your life, the one with yourself. This is where your true power reveals itself. This is where transformation begins. And that's exactly what we'll talk about. I'll show you how the lonely path can lead you to places no relationship ever could. Once you understand what's really happening in your brain when you choose this path, you will never look at solitude the same way again. Keep growing, expanding, and truly tapping into the full potential that lies within you. Now, let me tell you something fascinating. Science has already proven that comfort is not where transformation happens. Sounds obvious, right? But what neuroscience reveals goes beyond that. When you spend time alone, a part of your brain called the default mode network, or as I like to call it, the imagination network, activates. Do you know what that means? It's the same network Einstein activated when discovering the theory of relativity. The same one Tesla used to visualize alternating current. Amazing, right? But here's the catch. Most people never activate this network because they are too busy reacting to others. Now, let me share a specific study with you. Research shows that during moments of intentional solitude, the brain increases the production of a substance called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it as fertilizer for your neurons. It literally helps your brain form new connections, allowing you to reprogram your mind to become more independent and original. But here's one crucial point. This process is interrupted when we are constantly engaged in relationship dynamics. Your nervous system enters social engagement mode, reading facial expressions, adjusting behaviors, and managing others' emotions. Your brain is too busy maintaining harmony around you instead of focusing on your inner growth. Before we move on, let me share something that might be the turning point you've been waiting for. If you're tired of cycles that keep you from reaching your goals and want to attract success, prosperity, and peace, pay close attention. Many people feel trapped, unable to break free from negative patterns. But the truth is, every transformation begins in the mind. That's exactly why I created the ebook, The Formula of Powerful Affirmations, a practical and powerful guide on how to reprogram your mind and bring out the best in yourself. In this ebook, you'll learn how to use affirmations to break negative cycles and create a life full of abundance and achievements. With proven techniques based on years of practice and research, you'll discover how to attract success, peace, and become the person you've always wanted to be. The download link for the ebook is in the first pinned comment and the video description. Don't ignore this. Download it now and see how this ebook can be the first step to transforming your life in just a few days. Now the magic begins. When you allow yourself to be alone, your nervous system shifts into a state that scientists call productive regeneration. Your heart rate improves, stress hormone levels drop, and most importantly, your brain starts creating new neural connections that don't rely on external validation. Do you know what that means in practice? When you make decisions on your own, your brain activates areas related to independent thinking and innovation. But in a group, those areas are suppressed. This isn't sabotage by the brain. It does this to help you fit in, maintain balance in relationships, or within a team. That's why so many people, at some point in a relationship, ask themselves, I don't know who I am anymore. But when you decide on your own, the brain's executive center, the prefrontal cortex, connects with deeper parts responsible for emotions and intuition. You don't just think, you feel your truth. And that is powerful. I call this whole brain thinking. And do you know what's most interesting? Every time you choose the solitary path and make your own decisions, you're not just making a choice. You're building a new neural structure. You are literally creating new pathways in your brain that make independence natural and comfortable. This is the power of neuroplasticity in action. Look at this. Studies show that decisions made in moments of solitude align more with your true values. When you are alone, your brain activates areas associated with self-referential thinking. In other words, you ask yourself, what do I really want? Instead of what will others think? But there's a catch. Many people don't experience these benefits because they fear being alone. When discomfort arises, they interpret it as a sign that something is wrong. But the truth is, that discomfort is your nervous system recalibrating. It's your brain creating new neural networks. It's not a signal to pull back. It's a sign of growth. Think about it. All great minds, all breakthrough figures in history had to disconnect from the crowd to achieve their greatest discoveries. Not because they were antisocial, but because they knew that certain kinds of neural reorganization only happen in solitude. Your brain constantly adapts to experiences. By choosing solitude, you're not just distancing yourself from others. You are literally building a neural structure of independence. You are creating pathways that help you access your most authentic self, make decisions that truly reflect your purpose, and think of ideas that have never crossed your mind before. This isn't theory. This is pure neuroscience. And when you understand this, you'll see that the solitary path isn't just a choice. It's a biological necessity for anyone who wants to grow and live according to their true potential. Every time you focus on something, you are literally changing the course of events. Now imagine the impact this could have on your life. Since birth, we've been bombarded with the idea that we need someone to feel complete. You find it in every fairy tale, romantic song, and movie about soulmates. Find your other half, they say. But what if I told you that this belief is holding back your growth in ways you aren't even aware of? This mindset is so deeply rooted in us that it has become part of our survival instinct. You've been programmed to believe that being alone means something is wrong. Have you noticed how right after a breakup, people ask, so, when will you find someone new? As if your worth is directly tied to your relationship status. Let me tell you a secret that no one talks about. This isn't just social pressure. It's biological programming that has been operating in your nervous system for thousands of years. In caveman times, being in a group meant safety. Solitude could mean death. But the truth is, Today, we're no longer running from predators, right? We don't live in caves anymore. Before we continue, I want to make sure you don't miss out on important content. Check if you're already subscribed to the channel. This way, you'll gain access to valuable strategies that can truly change your life. Don't miss this chance. Every new video could be the next step in your evolution. Once you've done that, we move forward and discover what lies ahead. This could be exactly what you needed to finally see the changes you long for. We are here to grow, transcend, and become supernatural versions of ourselves. Now let me tell you something profound. Every time you feel uneasy when you're alone, it's not your true self speaking. It's your old self, the one operating on an outdated program that says safety equals survival. But what if what your biology fears is exactly what your soul needs to grow? Think about this. How many times have you stayed in a relationship that no longer made sense just because the fear of being alone outweighed the dissatisfaction? How many times have you set your dreams aside because your partner's fears became your limitations? This is the moment when relationships turn into emotional crutches. I've seen it many times during workshops. Brilliant, talented people who use relationships as a shield to avoid facing their own potential. They spend so much time tending to their partner's emotions that they forget about their own growth. But now comes the breakthrough moment. The instant you break this cycle, something extraordinary happens to your energy. When you stop seeking completeness outside yourself and stop using relationships to avoid growth, you begin to access parts of yourself that have been dormant for years. This doesn't mean you need to isolate yourself or reject human connections. It's about breaking the pattern of emotional dependency that has been programmed into your nervous system. True spiritual growth often requires periods of conscious solitude. When you are constantly engaged in relationships, you operate at the level of your known self, your habits, personality, and patterns. But spiritual evolution requires stepping into the unknown and becoming comfortable with uncertainty. This is difficult to achieve when you are emotionally entangled in someone else's reality. Magic happens when you break these patterns. You begin to develop an inner strength you didn't even know existed. You learn to sit with discomfort without needing someone else to ease your pain. You learn how to appreciate yourself without relying on external validation. You learn to love yourself without needing someone else to show you how. This is true freedom. It's the moment you step out of the matrix of social programming. Because when you realize that wholeness is your natural state and that you don't need anyone to feel complete, everything changes. You stop attracting relationships based on need and start building connections based on choice. And when that happens, your spiritual evolution accelerates in ways you never imagined. Now let me take you even deeper. Before we continue, I ask one quick thing that makes a huge difference. If this content already resonates with you, leave a like. It not only helps me create more videos that inspire you, but it also signals to YouTube that this content is valuable to others like you. Once you've done that, we'll keep going because the next point I'm about to share could be exactly what you need to take that next step forward. We are now entering the extraordinary realms of quantum physics and consciousness. When you begin to understand the quantum field, you realize that walking the solitary path is not just a personal choice. It's a powerful tool for creating your reality. In quantum physics, there is a fascinating concept called coherence. It's a state in which particles align and move in perfect synchrony. Your thoughts work exactly the same way. When you are truly alone with your thoughts, you reach a state I call focused awareness. All your mental energy channels into one point, no longer scattered by the thoughts, expectations, and emotions of others. Now think of water. When it flows in one direction, it has immense power, cutting through rocks and shaping landscapes. But when it spreads in many directions, it loses its force. Your consciousness works the same way. When you are constantly in relationships or surrounded by people, your energy scatters. You think about what they think, feel what they feel, and worry about their problems. Your awareness becomes fragmented, losing its power to create real change. And here's the key point about the quantum field. In quantum physics, we know that the observer influences what is observed. In other words, simply focusing your attention on something changes its behavior. Now imagine what happens when you turn that attention inward. Think about the power of that action. How many times have you had a brilliant idea, felt like it was exactly what you needed to do, but after sharing it with someone, their doubts made you question everything? This isn't just a psychological process, it's a quantum phenomenon. The observation of that person literally influenced the quantum field of possibilities you are creating. When you walk alone, without that interference, you maintain what physicists call quantum coherence in your thoughts. Your intentions remain pure, your vision becomes clear, and most importantly, your energy stays focused. You don't have to adjust your rhythm or vibration to meet others' expectations. Think about the famous double-slit experiment, where the mere act of observing an electron changes its behavior. Your dreams, goals, and potential all exist in a state of quantum superposition with infinite possibilities. But the moment you allow others to observe and judge those possibilities, you force them to collapse into more limited forms. This explains why so many innovative and creative individuals throughout history had to isolate themselves from the crowd. They intuitively understood that to access new possibilities, they had to maintain their quantum coherence, free from the doubts and fears projected by others. When you are alone with your thoughts and intentions, you can hold this state of coherence for longer periods. This state is like a laser beam of your consciousness, cutting through the noise of collective thought and reaching the pure potential of the quantum field. Now comes the most powerful part. When you learn to create from this state of solitary coherence, you don't just manifest with your personal power. You tap into the infinite potential of the quantum field. You stop creating from a place of need, lack, or dependency and start creating from a place of wholeness and completeness. This is what physicists call the unified field. That's why walking your own path isn't just about personal independence. It's about becoming a more powerful quantum creator. When you can hold your coherence, observing possibilities without the influence of others' limited perceptions, you become what I call a quantum creator, someone capable of collapsing waves of infinite possibilities into reality through the power of their consciousness. Now let me tell you something that could change your life forever. This transformation doesn't just happen on a mental level. It involves rewiring your brain and nervous system for emotional independence. Let's talk about what really happens in your mind when you become emotionally dependent on others. Every time you seek external validation, through praise, messages, or gestures of affection, your brain releases a powerful chemical mix: dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. You become addicted to these feelings. Your brain learns to associate self-worth with external approval. But here's the revolutionary point. You can trigger those same chemical reactions internally. And this isn't magic, it's science. There are specific meditation techniques that can train your brain to release these substances without the involvement of other people. And when you do this, something incredible happens. You feel whole. You feel enough. You learn that the source of everything you've been seeking externally has always been within you. This is the first step to rebuilding the most important relationship in your life, the relationship with yourself. This is that moment of silence that so few have the courage to embrace. Now let me tell you a powerful truth. These moments of intentional solitude aren't reserved for geniuses and inventors. They are available to you every single day. And that's where the magic happens. The practice is simple but transformative. Spend 20 minutes every morning sitting in silence, alone. Direct your attention to the center of your heart. Instead of waiting for someone to love you, generate that love within yourself. Feel it grow and expand in your chest. Here's the secret. Your brain doesn't distinguish between love you receive and love you create. By doing this, you are literally rewiring your neural connections to produce these emotions without relying on anything or anyone else. And this is the moment where many people give up. They try to meditate, but the mind quickly starts to wander, returning to past relationships, wondering what others think. This is actually the old program fighting for survival. Every time you bring your focus back to the love you generate internally, you create new neural pathways. You teach your brain that you don't need external stimuli to feel whole. This is the process of breaking emotional dependency. Your brain has been trained to associate certain emotions with external situations or people. But the truth is, all the chemistry, every emotion, has always been created by you. Other people were merely the trigger. Now imagine the power of being your own source. I've created a specific technique to build internal validation systems. Here's how you can start. Take a notebook and write down all the forms of recognition you seek from others. every compliment, every bit of praise, every acknowledgement you wish to receive. The most important part, every day, take a moment to give yourself exactly that validation. If you want to be appreciated for your growth, appreciate yourself. If you long for recognition for your work, praise yourself. This isn't just repeating words. By doing this, you are literally rewiring the reward systems in your brain, creating new thought patterns. Emotional independence is built one thought at a time. Now, when a challenge arises and you feel the urge to share it with someone or seek advice, pause for a moment. Sit with that discomfort. Notice how your mind tries to pull you back into dependency. Every time you solve a problem on your own, you strengthen the neural architecture of independence. Here's a powerful practice. Every evening, before bed, review your day. Hey, don't forget to check the first pinned comment to download the ebook and take the first step toward your transformation. Find 3 moments where you wanted to seek external validation, but chose internal validation instead. Feel proud of those choices. Confidence grows through these small victories. Gradually, you'll rewire your brain to associate pleasure with independence, not dependency. And this reconfiguration isn't just mental, it's physiological. Every time you choose conscious solitude, you change the chemistry of your brain. You create new synaptic connections that make independence feel natural and even enjoyable. Your brain was designed to support you in solitude. It was simply conditioned for dependency, but with practice and conscious choices, you can reprogram it for success in solitude. This is the true meaning of freedom. It's not the absence of relationships, but the presence of complete self-sufficiency. When you reach this state, relationships will no longer be a necessity. They will become a choice. You won't seek to fill a void, but to share your fullness. And in that very moment, as you consider this possibility, your brain is already creating new neural pathways. Now the question is, will you continue this journey toward independence, or will you let old programs pull you back? Think about it. The evolution of humanity has always been driven by those who stepped away from the crowd to think independently. Nikola Tesla spent hours walking alone, visualizing every invention before bringing it to life. Einstein developed the theory of relativity during moments of complete solitude while working as an ordinary patent clerk. This wasn't a coincidence. They had access to something fundamental in human consciousness. When you are alone, the noise of social interaction disappears, and you touch what I call the evolutionary edge of consciousness. This is where the greatest innovations are born. Marie Curie worked alone for years in her lab, laughed at by others, but it was in solitude that she discovered radioactivity. Leonardo da Vinci spent countless hours alone, observing nature and noticing connections no one else could see. They were not afraid of solitude. They understood that it is in this quiet space where consciousness expands and new realities are born. True change in your life begins here. Buddha achieved enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, alone. Jesus went to the desert, alone, for 40 days. Muhammad received his revelations in the solitude of the mountains. These experiences were not just spiritual practices. They were shortcuts to expanded consciousness. When you are truly alone, something extraordinary happens. You stop being just a local processor of information and become an antenna receiving universal consciousness. It's like tuning into a radio station. When there is too much noise, social interactions, group pressure, you cannot pick up the subtle frequencies of universal wisdom. But when silence falls, you hear what was previously undetectable. Now pay attention to this. The evolution of humanity has always favored independent thinkers. Look at every great leap in human consciousness. It always began with someone who had the courage to step away from conventional thinking. Someone who sat alone with their thoughts until they were ready to change the world. And you know what's interesting? Your nervous system already knows this on a deep level. That's why solitude feels both terrifying and exciting at the same time. It is terrifying to your primitive brain, the part that values the group and fears isolation. But to your evolving consciousness, solitude is exhilarating. Every time you choose solitude, you're not just choosing to be alone. You are actively participating in the evolution of human consciousness. Now think about the great artists who changed the way we see the world. Van Gogh, Frida Kahlo, Georgia O'Keeffe. All of them experienced periods of deep solitude where they developed a unique vision that broke through collective consciousness. They knew something important. To create something truly new, you must be willing to step beyond the field of collective awareness. This is the highest purpose of solitude. It is not isolation, it is transcendence. When you are alone, you have the chance to rise above old patterns, limiting beliefs, and the repetition of the past. You gain access to what quantum physics calls non-local consciousness, perception that transcends time and space. Remember this: every significant leap in humanity, every profound innovation, every spiritual discovery came from someone who was willing to walk alone. Not because they didn't enjoy company, but because they knew that certain frequencies of consciousness can only be accessed in solitude. This is your evolutionary advantage. This is the path to accessing universal consciousness. This is why the solitary path will take you further than any relationship ever could. Because in true solitude, you are never really alone. You are connected to everything. Now let's turn this knowledge into practice. I want to give you specific tools to integrate this experience into your life. Because knowing is one thing. Living this transformation is what will change your reality. Let's turn this wisdom into a daily practice, because that's where real transformation happens. Here's what you will do starting tomorrow morning. Right after waking up, before you reach for your phone, before you talk to anyone, spend 20 minutes in silence and solitude. Sit with your back straight, hands on your knees, and focus on your breath. This is not just meditation. It is a powerful statement to your nervous system. It is you saying, I am capable of generating my own stable emotional state. Now pay attention to this. Many people don't even realize they are emotionally dependent. There are clear signs, and I want you to be aware of them. Do you reach for your phone immediately after waking up? Do you feel the need to share everything that happens with someone else? Do you feel anxious when you are not constantly connected to people? If you answered yes to any of these questions, don't blame yourself. These are just symptoms of emotional dependency. But now, I will teach you a practice that will break this cycle. Create what I call a sovereignty space during the day. Set aside 2 hours when you are completely unavailable. No phone, no emails, no social media. At first, your nervous system will react. You might feel anxious or even guilty. Do you know what that means? It means it's working. That is exactly the moment when the reprogramming begins. To protect this new space of freedom, use a technique I call energetic containment. Before engaging with anyone, set a clear boundary. How much time will you devote to this conversation? What kind of energy are you willing to exchange? What are your limits? This isn't coldness. It's clarity. Hey, don't forget to check the first pinned comment to download the ebook and take the first step toward your transformation. And guess what happens when you set boundaries with precision? You become more present in your relationships. Now, the golden point. Pay attention to energy leaks throughout the day. These are the moments when you give away your power without even realizing it. Changing plans to avoid disappointing someone. Not speaking your truth to avoid conflict. Every time you notice an energy leak, correct it immediately. It's like training the muscle of self-sufficiency. Now I want you to develop a practice that anchors you fully every day. Take a notebook and write these 3 sentences each morning. I am whole. I create from abundance. I am my own source. These aren't just affirmations. They are direct commands to your brain. You are literally programming your mind to operate from a state of fullness, not lack. Now, a practical technique to maintain independence in relationships. Before making any decision, ask yourself, would I make this decision if I were completely alone? If the answer is no, that's a clear sign you are acting from dependency, not choice. This simple question can save you from years of commitment to something that doesn't reflect your truth. Now I want to introduce you to something I call a personal power inventory. Each evening, before bed, review your day. In what moments were you true to your own path? When did you choose your direction instead of seeking approval from others? When did you stay focused on your own energy? Every time you recognize these victories, you strengthen the neural pathways of self-sufficiency. Now, this is important. Staying connected to people is essential. But there is a difference between connecting with someone out of need and connecting by choice. I want you to plan something I call conscious connection time. This is an intentional moment where you choose to connect with someone not because you have to, but because you want to. The difference is subtle, but it changes everything. And when you feel the old patterns trying to pull you back, and they will have a backup plan ready, pause what you're doing. Place your hand on your heart. Take 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, am I choosing this from a place of fullness, or am I reacting out of habit? This simple pause can stop you from falling into the trap of dependency. And remember, integration is not the final goal. It's a daily practice. Every time you choose independence, you evolve. You transform into a new, more authentic version of yourself. This is the true meaning of the solitary path. It's not about isolation, but about sovereign connection to who you really are. It's the path to creating a life that reflects your deepest desires, not the expectations of others. You no longer seek someone to complete you. You create from your own wholeness. Now the question is, are you ready to walk alone toward your greatness? To close, if this material brought you clarity or inspiration, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This helps me create more videos that can transform your life. Check out the videos appearing on the screen now. I'm sure they'll guide you even further on this path of self-discovery. And don't forget to click on the first pinned comment to download the ebook that will guide you step by step in creating the future you desire. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue to grow together.